Hello, and welcome back to Once Upon a Tiny Farm. My name's Drew, and today we are going to be making our own seed starting mix. And that is something that we've never done before, but from what I've seen through a lot of other YouTube tutorials, it's not really something that you can mess up. And in fact, making our own inputs is something that we're planning, or I'm planning to do a whole lot of this year on our farm. So in the spirit of transparency for our customers that purchase our produce from us at the farmer's market, I want to be as transparent as possible, being the one that is growing their food, about the types of materials that we're using to grow their food. And in order to do that, I'm going to show the mix that I'm going to be making to start the very first seeds that I'm going to be planting this year, and those are going to be onions. I'll probably do the onions in a separate video, but for the sake of this video, let's get into making our own seed starting mix. Also, last year, like I said, I did not make my own mix. I used a seed starting mix that was called Pro Mix. And I was actually planning on purchasing that again, but I just can't seem to find it in stock anywhere. They usually have it at like Lowe's, but Lowe's doesn't have it in stock, and I've been had my email on a waiting list for it, and yeah, it just isn't ready, and I'm ready to plant stuff. So I did the next best thing, and that mix was a great mix because it had an ingredient in it called mycorrhizae, which is a beneficial bacteria that basically creates these like webs of roots in the ground. It kind of like just helps the plant just explode. And so what I decided to do is the next best thing. Since I don't have that mix, I'm going to try to recreate it the best I can. And I'm actually going to make it a little bit better, I think, because I'm actually going to be using my own compost for the first time. This is compost that we made here on our farm, so very happy and proud about that. We're going to be sifting our own compost. We're going to be using peat moss here and perlite. So three main ingredients anyway, are right here that we're going to be using. Another important thing about your seed starting mix, something I didn't even think about last year, but as someone who we just started our whole farm last year, and we expanded it at the end of last year for this year. And when you're building new beds and creating new soil, every time that you transplant something into that ground, you are basically inoculating the soil with whatever kind of ingredients that you used in your mix. So it's very important. You're basically amending your soil with your mix every single time you transplant something with that mix. So it's very important, the ingredients that you use. So let's get into making the mix. All right, now I've got a little tote down here. That's where we're going to be putting keeping our mix. I have this. This is a soil sifting thing that I made just out of 2x4 and 1/4-inch hardware cloth. So I'm going to be straining my homemade compost through the mesh strainer, and I'm actually going to be straining the peat moss through that as well. So now we're going to get started making our mix. Oh man, stuff's frozen. Alright, so we already didn't get very far, but I didn't realize, maybe I should have realized, this bucket of compost is almost completely frozen. So I might need to figure out a way to thaw that out. But you can at least see how this mesh screen really gets out the big chunks of debris and rocks and sticks and twigs out, and the really fine soil gets down to the bottom. That's good. So I think we're gonna have to reconvene tomorrow and hopefully get this finished. Have to figure out how to thaw out this bucket of compost.
Alright guys, welcome back. It's a few days later. The weather's a lot warmer now, so I thought it would even be better to finish doing what we started in the greenhouse out here, and I'm actually going to be doing the mixing in this wheelbarrow that is now accessible to me because the whole block of ice that was in here melted and is gone. So it'll be a lot easier to see and mix everything in here. So that's what we're going to do. My compost is finally thawed out, so let's do that first. This is what we get sifted through there. Just beautiful stuff. We could probably plant right into the compost here, which is something that I was considering doing, or at least trying. Maybe I will experiment and do a couple trays with using only the compost and no peat, because I just think that would be cool to be able to use all of our own inputs here. But there's a reason why people use the peat moss. It's got really good moisture holding capabilities, and if I were to do a mix with just my own compost, I think I would need another material called vermiculite, and vermiculite does a really good job at holding on to moisture. So I would probably do a mix of the perlite and vermiculite in with the compost to make sure that it wouldn't dry out so easily. Alright, so now I'm just finishing up sifting this compost. I didn't get as much compost as I would have liked because a lot of it is just frozen in blocks, but I'm just getting what I can out of here, and the rest of it will be the peat moss mixture. But this compost is good because it'll put that organic matter in the seed starting mix. Last year I used Pro Mix, like I said earlier in the video, and the Pro Mix had it had the mycorrhiza, so that was a living bacteria, beneficial bacteria, but I didn't have any soil like compost in my mix last year, and that's going to be different this year. It is going to have some of that compost mixed in with the peat moss, so it won't be a soilless mix like last year, and hopefully that will make a difference. You know, seeds don't need soil to sprout. The seeds have all everything that they need inside of itself to sprout. So it doesn't need like a crazy amount of organic matter to sprout. It just needs the right growing conditions, which is moist, light, airy substance, and that's what the peat moss would do, or the coconut coir. If you had tried using some coconut coir, you could grow in that medium too, but it doesn't have to be soil. It's but once they start growing and getting bigger, they do have more needs. They need nutrients to grow, but not to sprout. This does take quite a bit of work to do, to sift, but when I'm done here, I'll show you the finished product that ends up in getting sifted through the bottom. It just looks awesome. So now you could see right in here, this is your finished product of your sifted compost. This is awesome. This is just beautiful, beautiful. There's nothing big in here, no sticks, no twigs, so nothing's going to get in the way of those tiny little seeds when they're trying to sprout. They're just going to grow here and they're going to be awesome, I'm sure. Alright, next I'm going to get a bucket of, this is my measuring cup, so everything I'm using is in these 5-gallon buckets as measurement. So we got our bucket of sifted compost. Next I'm going to get the peat moss. Alright, I got my bucket of peat moss here. It actually doesn't look like it needs much sifting, but I'm just going to do it anyway, just to make everything really uniform. And you can see it really does look like soil, but it's much, much lighter, at least when carrying the 5-gallon bucket worth compared to a bucket of compost or soil. This stuff is very, very light, and that's good for seed starting. This stuff's really, really pretty. So I'm just going to sift this all through the screen. You know, doing all this work, you might think, man, it'd be a lot easier just to grab a bag of this stuff at the store, and it would be. But I actually wonder, it might be even cheaper. I'm pretty certain this is cheaper to do it this way, to buy these bags of peat moss in bulk. I got 2 3 cubic foot bags. Each bag was about $13. So we'll see how long that lasts me. Last year I got 2 bags of the Pro Mix, and I think they were about the same size. They were a compressed bale, and they double in size when you get them out of those compressed bales and use them. So that's all I needed last year for all of my seed starting trays for the whole season. But this year, I'm going to talk about probably in my next video how we expanded our farm in size. We actually doubled our growing area, so I'm going to be starting more trays, and even the trays of lettuce like I did last year, I'm going to have to double because I went from 25-foot rows to 50-foot rows. So that means I'm going to have to start more seeds, so I'm going to need more seed starting mix. So we'll see how long this stuff lasts us every time I make one of these batches of seed starting mix. We'll see how long it lasts and how many trays I could do. And we'll figure it out as we go. But I am happy to be making it myself and know where all this stuff, what all the ingredients are and all that good stuff. I like to know where my stuff comes from and how it's made, so when people ask me at the market, I can proudly tell them, oh, I made this seed starting mix, and that's why your salad mix and your carrots look so beautiful. Actually, I am glad that I'm sifting this because I do see some tiny little sticks, not as much as were in my own compost, but enough that it might disrupt some growth in those little growing cells. So we'll have a little bit of mulch to add to our walkways. Like I said, I'm not going to waste anything. Alright, this is the last of the peat moss. Ooh, it's a little bit windy today. Probably should have zipped that door shut. almost done. And the last step here is going to be the perlite. And the perlite is very dusty, so it's actually a good thing. Don't want to be doing that in the greenhouse, because then that dust is just gonna get everywhere. And I probably should cover my face with a mask or something. I might just cover with my shirt so I don't inhale any of that dust, but you'll see in a minute here as I go and grab the... Alright, so we've got the peat moss here, the soil is on the bottom. We'll do a good mix here after we dump in the perlite next, and that's going to be our last main ingredient. I will have, there's 2 other ingredients I'm going to be adding, but not in those 5 gallon bucket size quantities. Here is the perlite. It's just a white looking rock. This will help with aeration. Doesn't really have the moisture holding capabilities so much, but it lets water drain really well through it, and that's what we want in our mix. So now just going to mix all this together, and that will be our mix. Look at that. That looks awesome. That's beautiful. I'm going to transfer this to my tote, hopefully without spilling everything. And then we'll see how many trays we could fill with this mix. But actually, I'm not done yet. Hold on to that thought. I'm going to add 2 more ingredients. One is worm castings. And I'm just going to do sprinkle a handful of worm castings just for some extra beneficial microbes and bacteria from those worm castings. And I'm also going to add mycorrhizae, and I got a small bag of it. I think the bag only has like 10 tablespoons worth, but a little bit of that stuff goes a long way. So that stuff is just going to supercharge this and really help these plants grow some crazy root structures, and that will benefit our farm here, because like I said, when we transplant things using our mix, we are inoculating our soil with this stuff. So this stuff is very important, what we put in there. So I'm going to do that next, and then that's it. There's no real measurement I'm doing here. These are the earthworm castings that I'm using. I had these from last year. Gonna sprinkle some of this in there. And mix this stuff in. You can't really overdose your plants in worm castings. So the more the merrier. And this here is the kind of, at least the brand of mycorrhiza. It's a company called Bigfoot. I think they're out of Oregon. And what I thought was cool about this product is that it also has ingredients include biochar and worm castings and kelp. So those are all really good ingredients to, I guess, trace ingredients that we'll also be including in our mix. So I'm not going to overdo it with this stuff. I should have brought out a tablespoon. Maybe I could have just put 1 or 2 tablespoons. Oh look, it's got a little measuring tablespoon in here. So I'm just going to sprinkle this stuff a little bit. I'm sure will go a long way. I'll do a half of another one. All right, very cool. This company, never heard of them before, but reviews looked pretty good on this stuff. So I'm gonna mix all this in, and then we're really done here. This is our supercharged homemade seed starting mix. This is alive. We made our soil a living, breathing thing, and that will only lead to really good stuff. That will give us the best plants possible. And that's what we want. Alright guys, that's going to wrap up this video on starting your own seed starting mix. And I hope you enjoyed that. If you found this video helpful, please give this video a like and subscribe to our channel if you haven't done so already for more videos just like this. Alright guys, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.